NGO Government Roundtable on embodied carbon. And our objectives are to share news, strategic plans, resources, and tools related to embodied carbon, report planning and future dates for conferences, webinars, and meetings, inspire and facilitate ongoing communication and conversation among key leaders related to embodied carbon, and finally, encourage convergence on shared embodied carbon terminology, data standards, benchmarks, and targets for embodied carbon reduction. And we are going to start off this morning with a presentation from Brooke Waldman and Rochelle Habji from the CLF staff. And they're going to be telling us all about the latest version, the 2025 version of the CLF material baselines. So take it away, Brooke and Rochelle.
Hello, y'all see the screen?
We can see your screen and hear your voice.
Great. Well, last month we published the latest North American Baselines report, the 2025 CLF North American Baselines report, and Rochelle and I are here to talk about it for a little bit. I'll kind of introduce the background, and Rochelle will go into a few examples about what's new this version. So the three of us here at CLF are part of the Carbon Leadership Forum's low products team. Rochelle and myself, and Jordan, who's not here, was our technical advisor on the project and a former manager of a previous Baselines project. So what is the CLF Material Baselines report? There have been 4 major reports starting in 2019 when the first one was issued, really to explicitly support the EC3 tool. Since then, it's grown in breadth and depth and range of applications, but it's kind of stayed true to some of its core purposes, which I'll get into in a moment. And there's been 4 major versions with a few updates in between these, roughly every 2 years. So it provides a set of CLF baseline values, baseline GWP values that are meant to be estimates of industry average GHG emissions for a range of construction materials. And we see them used as the basis of a comparison, for example, in LEED and policy, procurement policy, and project specs and otherwise, and also as default carbon intensity values for project scale modeling, whole building LCA and other project scale modeling. And so in the report, in the executive summary, there's a big table where we have kind of the key information of the baselines, the product type for which the baseline value applies to, the number and what unit of product, and then a very brief description of the method and our sources. And then in the report proper, there's pages upon pages of additional information about all these things. There is also what we call a state of EPDs snapshot of North American construction products. So that includes category background information for a range of materials. And then for each one, some charts and information about how many EPDs are available, locations around North America, how much embodied carbon emissions, the range of embodied carbon emissions for the EPDs for a given product type in the material category and other information. And then also a supporting methodology with the idea that the reader can both see how we did what we did and also potentially that some other organization could take this and adapt it for their own needs and build upon our methodology if that's useful. And I'm going to pass it over to Rochelle. Rochelle, if it's all right with you, I'll just keep holding the slideshow here.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm just going to go into, how are the CLF material baselines used in the industry? So the past couple of years, we've seen an explosion of policy and building code with regards to embodied carbon, and the baselines are important to provide the current state of the industry. There are many different uses and different parts of the industry and different parts of the industry that are able to use these baselines and I think benefit from using these baselines. They are currently being used in different LCA tools, in policy, and in rating systems like LEED v5. I was previously a structural engineer up until last year when I joined the Carbon Leadership Forum. And at my previous firm, we used the material-based science to run LCAs in the schematic design phase of projects. It's really cool actually to have referenced the baselines for so long and then be able to work on them now. And we would use that to coordinate with sustainability consultants. A lot of our projects were in City of Vancouver, and City of Vancouver was one of the first cities, if not the first city in North America, to have whole building LCA requirements in building code. So we also use the baselines and embedded like GWP calculators in our design spreadsheets and our post-processing of analysis results. And that really was helpful to understand the implication of our design changes. And yeah, so can you go to the next slide? Thank you. What is new in the 2025 CLF material-based science report? Can you go to the next slide? So we have a lot actually. I think both me and Brooke are really excited that we were able to include all of these new product types from the 2023 baselines. We have ready mixed concrete, shotcrete, a bunch of different wood products, CMU for the United States, insulation, and other finishes like ceramic tile and acoustic ceiling tiles. We expanded the number of baselines that we provided significantly. It wasn't just a copy and paste of 2003, or sorry, 2023. In this iteration, we have 355 different material baselines, and comparing that to 2023, we had 259 different material baselines. So we saw a super significant increase in the baselines. If we were to just remove concrete from the baselines, we had, because concrete has a bunch of different GWP baselines, we had like a 250% increase in the number that we provided, and that was one of our focuses, just because we got so much feedback that in order to expand the baseline so people can use them in practice. So we have baselines for categories we didn't previously have in 2023, like asphalt mixtures, fireproofing, and ceramic tile. And then we have new baseline values for product types that that didn't have baselines before, and that's like fiberglass insulation or CMU in the U.S. And one thing I think both me and Brooke are really proud of is this time around is we were able to consult a significantly higher number of industry on the values that we published, which was a really positive experience. It was like we really want to thank everybody that worked with us for the last 6 to 9 months. It really was a great experience to have more engagement with the industry. We did change some of the strategies that we originally were going to go with for different product types based off of that feedback. And I think it was like it created a really great relationship between us and different people in the industry. Okay, can we go to the next one? And okay, so now I'm just going to go through a couple of the different product types that I would like to highlight. The first one would be wood, softwood lumber. AWC recently published new regionally specific industry-wide EPDs, and they did it based off of regions in the US. They separated it based off of inland Northwest, the Pacific Coast, and Southern. Previously, there was one North American EPD, and you can see that the value was lower. Oh yeah, American. Thank you, Brooke. You can see that the value was lower previously, and now we have higher values. Um, a, partially a reason for that you can see that is for British Columbia. The regionally specific EPD for British Columbia is really low, and you can now see that, okay, yeah, the North American EPD was heavily weighted by Canadian values, and so now that there's more of a focus on regionality, we see the different impacts. The softwood lumber impacts vary by region, and we actually see that number go up, which I think is very interesting for how we're going to use baselines in the future to reduce emissions. One reason that this matters is the downstream users of softwood lumber, like projects buying lumber and manufacturers making downstream products like mass timber. can now have more accurate data sources for assessing the impacts of their project or their product. And I think that's really important. All right, can we go to the next one? So, and the next one. Now, diving a little bit into mass timber, they're currently, before the baselines were published, there was currently one applicable North American industry-wide EPD for regional CLT manufactured in British Columbia. And CLT was considered a high priority material due to the lack of industry average EPDs, and the fact that it's like used in many projects, and it is increasing its use in North America. And so there was a lot of back and forth about how we were going to provide, if and how we would provide baselines for CLT. We realized that the vast majority, if not all of the major CLT North American plants have EPDs. And so that's why, and so in the end, we decided that, okay, we can provide regionally specific baselines, and we separated it based off of the region's separation that was in the sawn lumber EPDs that were just published that I just talked about. So we designated it as Eastern Canada because there was already a British Columbia one. So there's the industry average British Columbia one, and we designated our baselines or our regionally specific baselines as Eastern Canada, US Southern, and then US Inland Northwest and the Pacific Coast. And then in speaking to industry professionals, one advice we received was to create an overarching parent North American baseline for CLT. So we also included that in the baselines as well. So can you go to the next one, Brooke? And then I wanted to highlight these two other new baselines that we provided for mass plywood panel and dowel laminated timber. Both of these products are the same thing as, well, they are both very similar to CLT, and they serve the same structural function. And what we realized is both of them, both MPP and DLT, are both manufactured at the vast majority of them are manufactured through one manufacturer at one plant, and they have EPDs. So because it represented almost 100% of the market share for each of these product types, we decided to adopt those the values in their EPDs as the baseline values in our material baselines report. Can you go to the next one? Yeah. Okay, so getting into ready mix concrete high strength, which is one of my personal favorites. So I think it was frustrating for me when I was a structural engineer, when I was designing like shear walls or anything that needed high strength concrete, anything that needed like 9,000, 10,000, 12,000 PSI. It was really frustrating that there were no industry average EPDs. Or industry or baseline values for concrete mixes with compressive strengths greater than 8,000 psi. So this was something that really hits home for me, and I think we really wanted to see if we could provide baseline values for higher strength concrete. And yeah, the reason it's honestly similar to CLT in that there's a consistent demand for high strength concrete mixes, but there is a lack of data of established data behind them. And so we wanted to see if we could fill that gap in the industry. We do prefer, I want to preface this with we prefer industry-wide published data where we have it, and we will adopt those baselines where we have it. And where there isn't, that's where we use the product EPDs and assess whether or not they are representative of the industry and whether we could assign a baseline value for that product type. So that's what we did with high strength concrete, and we were able to, we used the regionality, the NRMCA regions that have been designated, and tried to see if we could provide baselines for those regions, and we did provide them for some of them. Can you go to the next one, Brooke? Okay, so we took a look for all of these different, the NRMCA regions, we took a look at the number of manufacturers in our data set, the number of plants in our data set, and compared that to the number of plants in NRMCA's benchmark report data set. And you can see, thanks, Brooke. And then you can see that some of the regions, they are pretty representative. Like the number of plants in our data set was pretty close to and when I mean our data set was only high strength concrete. And so you can see that a lot of the regions like the Pacific Southwest, the Southeast, and like Eastern for sure, and the Pacific Northwest, there was a good amount, there was a majority of plants that were represented in our data set compared to the NRMCA benchmark report data set. And so that's why we decided to provide baselines for some of those regions, and you can check them out in the latest material baselines report. Okay, can you go to the next one? All right, so shotcrete, can you go to the next one, Brooke? Sorry. Shotcrete, I just wanted to end on shotcrete. Shotcrete was also very similar to high strength concrete in that shotcrete is used a lot in a lot of commercial buildings, a lot of multifamily residential buildings. There's no guidance, or there's not that I know of currently. There wasn't any guidance on providing baselines for shotcrete. Yeah, I think it was something that we wanted to, a gap that we wanted to fill in the industry as well if we could. So we took a look at the different regions in the US. And then we decided that, okay, the Pacific Northwest, Pacific Southwest, and specifically the Pacific Northwest and the Pacific Southwest, there was enough data to provide baselines. And for shotcrete, typically, like they're going to be used for basement walls. So most likely, you're not going to be going over 6,000 psi unless you're talking about a tower or something. So we decided to provide, and actually wasn't a lot of data there wasn't a lot of EPDs that were greater than 6,000 psi for shotcrete anyway. So we decided to provide baselines for 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 psi. And then similarly for British Columbia as well, for 35 MPa, 40 MPa, and 45 MPa. And that is it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Brooke and Rochelle. That's an amazingly intense and concentrated delivery of data. That was amazing. So thank you for all of that. And now we'll go right on to, actually, we have two friends with us today from Nairobi, Kenya. And let's start with Cecilia Wandiga from the Center for Science and Innovation. Tell us what's happening in the center of Africa.
Hi, everyone. Let me try and share. So we've been, as mentioned, we're focusing on the biochar pathway, looking at how to mix that. Our initial is looking at mixing with concrete, not cement, just to see where we end up on ratios. We're looking at the fact that we need to combine this as a research project. It's not just industry, but it's also getting academia and getting the general public interested in this, because if they don't understand what we're doing, they'll never see a need for this type of product or material. So here is the, we'd promised that we'd have a initial test. So we did do a 20% biochar mix. We got results that were flipped from the literature. The literature says that the finer the particle size, the higher the compressive strength. Professor Koteng, who's the one who did this research, he tends to work more on the pozzolanic side, and we used a hydrometer for separation. We got that idea from crowdsourcing on LinkedIn. We found out that there's a shortage of sieves. We don't have the right sieve size in Kenya, so we don't want to order sieves, and we were figuring out how to get that particle size distribution. And what we found was we actually were getting higher MPa results when we had the larger particle size, which was we still need to do some tests to figure out why that is. Somebody said it might be because we used a hydrometer and because the particles were wet, and some people do this when they're dry. So I don't know what the actual reason is, but one of the things that we're happy about is that one of our cube tests matched the control, which was just the pure cement. So, and that was at about 40 MPa. So we got that, and the lowest, 40.92. The lowest was 26.73. So that was pretty good. Now the issue is looking at biochar quality, and so International Biochar Initiative has a scale for rating particle sizes of biochar, but then to try and translate, this is a hypothetical where we're trying to translate what that means when you're trying to put it in concrete, because this is designed for agricultural use, and the type of like, for example, fertilizer grade. We don't really need fertilizer grade for concrete. So then trying to think about how are we going to look at the chemical reactivity of different chemicals that go into the biochar as an adsorbent. We know it will attract different ones. And how do we develop some kind of equivalence that then fits into the scale that they already have? And this is just we are also now a lead for City CDR initiative, trying to onboard African cities. Why do we have slaughterhouse waste? We were looking for materials that accumulate in unregulated landfills and are typically burned. And then also the sensitivity for those who are vegan, that we could always tell them that there's an option and of, instead of a slaughterhouse waste, using sewage, and how to declare all that on EPDs. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Cecilia. And while we're at it, Nixon Otieno, also from Nairobi, could you give us a quick report on what Nico Green is up to? And also, I want to just remind everybody of two things. First of all, if you haven't already, please put your name and the organization that you represent in the chat window. Secondly, if you feel comfortable doing this, we'd like to ask anybody who does to please turn on your camera. It's great to see some actual human faces instead of little black boxes. So anybody who's willing to do that, thank you very much for doing it. And now go right ahead, Nixon. Nixon, you may be muted.
Yeah,
oh, there you are.
Thank you
Okay,
very much,
go ahead.
Andrew. Am I audible now?
You are audible.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to highlight what we are doing. Just for those who may not be aware, we are a think tank accredited by UNFCCC, providing technical assistance to governments and also different industry players in climate change and sustainability and circularity. Today, I just want to highlight a few of the active work that we are currently doing. Some have bearing on embodied carbon, but the rest of them have more all in terms of mainstreaming sustainability in the built environment and other sectors as well. So the first is I'm currently preparing an NDC, National Determined Contribution Position paper, specifically for the building and construction sector in Kenya. And this is an activity contracted by UNEP, Global ABC program. The objective is basically to review Kenya's NDC, the last two submissions covering the period 2020 to 2025, and then 2025 to 2030 and 2031-35, and look at the commitments that have been made as far as decarbonizing the building and construction sector is concerned, and also integrating adaptation in the sector, how ambitious these are, and the extent to which they've been implemented, and basically raising this ambition to have more ambitious, inclusive, measurable, and practical, investable commitments for decarbonizing the building sector. And secondly, we are, of course, that is directly being handled by Nico Green under my leadership, but then there's led by Global Building Performance Network in developing the building decarbonization roadmap for Kenya. Are you still with me? Just to be sure I didn't lose the connection.
We can hear you, Nico.
Are you following?
We can hear you, Nixon. Yes.
Hello. Great. Then third, we are also finalizing a carbon footprint assessment of the health sector. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, Nixon, we can hear you.
Thank you for that. We are also doing a carbon footprinting for the health sector. Okay, and what is interesting for the building is that though this is a more health sector focused activity, we are looking at also the healthcare infrastructure, and particularly ensuring that the healthcare infrastructure are low carbon, the building themselves are low carbon and resilient. And we are developing guidelines that will support the Ministry of Health and State Department of Public Works to ensure that the healthcare infrastructure resilient. And at the end of this program, through support of other partners, would be to pilot some of the model green health facilities that are resilient. We are also supporting
Hello, Nixon.
That is looking at greening public spaces, integrating for the parking infrastructure, and also
Nixon, we've lost your audio. We've lost your audio. We're apparently having some bandwidth problems. Could you stop sharing your screen, and we'll try to go on to somebody else now. Thank you very much, Nixon. Could you stop sharing your screen? We'll go on to somebody else. And I'm sorry, but things have become a little bit disconnected here. So let's move on. Ash Loth from Industrious Labs, could you tell us something about the Global Cement and Concrete Network? And I know that you've got some news to report. And also, just keep everybody in mind, we are going to be running out of time toward the end. So if everybody keep your presentations relatively short and succinct, and then we'll move quickly through the agenda so that everybody will have a chance to make their presentations. Ash, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Andrew. Hi, everyone. I'm Ash Loth. I'm the Senior Campaign Strategist at Industrious Labs. We work to decarbonize heavy industrial sectors, and I focus on the global cement and concrete industries. I'm based in Oakland, California, and I'm super happy to be here to talk about our new global cement and concrete network that we are launching currently as we speak. Our inaugural calls on Monday, and I'm going to share my screen to tell you a little bit more about it. I would say that I'm particularly excited to share it with this constellation of folks because I think there are some real overlaps, not only with who's on the call, but how this particular network is set up and how the Global Cement and Concrete Network will be set up. Okay, so very briefly, like why cement and concrete? Out of all the industries we could decarbonize, well, cement and concrete emissions, particularly in the global south, are huge. Concrete overall accounts for 8% of the world's total global emissions. And a lot of that comes from emerging economies and developing nations. There is a striking growth correlated to carbon emissions and the cement industry, really driven by new facilities coming online. And the thing about this is that there is not a lot of advocacy happening in the global south. And in international spaces, the voices of global south advocates aren't really heard or even represented. And we think this needs to change. We think we need better policies, greater representation, a clear direction for just transition, and really resourcing folks on the ground, the advocates and the experts who are doing the work already to decarbonize this industry. There are also some key challenges beyond decarbonization. The cement and concrete industries have tremendous pollution effects and negative health costs for people and for the environment, namely air and water. Breezing through these quite quickly, as you can tell. Oh, but that's not it either. Actually, there are some pretty heavy-handed socioeconomic impacts of cement, including economic inequality and vulnerability, significant barriers to some of the best solutions that we already have and that are very much implementable right now, and actually a lot of governance failures as well. So, what are we doing about it? What is Industrious Labs alongside global partners? What are we co-building and co-creating? We aim to transform the industrial sector by building national networks. I would say that is embedded within this international network we are building, deepening our analysis, really meshing the international and national decarbonization strategies, de-siloing some of the key stakeholders, which include industry, but also communities, and creating room for all these diverse perspectives. So, what are we aiming towards? What will success of this network look like? We will elevate the leadership of Global South stakeholders, and we're going to do just some really awesome campaign work. We are going to, again, co-create, co-build the capacity of Global South advocates and really bring to the surface decarbonization and make solutions possible quickly. We're also going to work together to produce compelling content. We're going to power map decision makers and bring these types of resources to the table in order to move them. We'll leverage strong demands and we'll do some interesting creative things like create a lucrative winner circle or hold industry accountable. And I'll just end by saying there is that if anyone's like, wow, I think this may be for me, or I certainly know someone who might be interested in this, here are a couple of value propositions if you'd like to join. We're going to build global power together. We are going to shift decision makers. We are going to push industrial decarbonization. We're going to build relationships with each other, enrich our strategic thinking, focus on international cooperation and multilateral diplomacy, create this carefully crafted and tightly facilitated space, again, first call on Monday, and create a bank of winning strategies that really move a lot of players on a lot of levels. So if you're interested in learning more, you'll have access to this slide deck afterwards. You can click this link, or you can just email me. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
That was great, Ash. And I'm also convinced that there is a natural overlap between a number of people on this call and your network. So you and I can connect a bit later on over the next week or so and see who else we can add to this network. And I want to just also stress, because we got started a few minutes late due to our infrastructure challenges, we are going to have to move quickly through the agenda. So just take a couple minutes to do your short presentation, then we'll move on to the next person. The next person would be Brianna Wheeler from Bream. Brianna, thank you for showing up, and take it away. Brianna, I saw her just a minute ago. All right, so let's go on to Bruce King from the Ecological Building Network, and I know that you've got a report as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everybody. You can hear me all right? Yeah?
Yep, we can.
I don't need slides. Here at EBNet, we've got 3 nascent projects which tie to just about everything I've heard so far. It's kind of exciting, these calls. We've just started working with the European Straw Building Network to build straw bale housing in Ukraine. They have hundreds of thousands now of internally displaced people and a lot of straw. It's very difficult to make things happen there, as you can imagine, but we hope to make some good things happen because straw is such a natural there that gets cold and the straw insulates. We're working in Rwanda now. It's nice to see Nico and Cecilia on the call. I hope to be traveling to Rwanda in early November and hope to see you both there. Gayatri Datar and Earth Enable have started building earthen floors and now are building entire communities out of earth. And I've been one of their advisors amongst many others, especially John Lee Landreau at ETH Zurich, who's developed a lot of novel binders for earthen concrete. And so we're going to be getting together to talk about how we can advance the technology of earthen concrete. The concrete industry and the earthen building world are starting to figure out that they're part of one piece. And since Africa is where most of the construction in the next few decades is going to happen, seems like a good place to try to think these things through. There's a lot of exciting possibility for both affordable and low carbon concrete. And Africa is going to need a whole bunch. Our last project is right here in California with building codes. I've been part of an ad hoc group of many architects and engineers developing carbon addendums to the California Building Code, somewhat like the low carbon concrete code we did here in Marin County. And that's proceeding apace and will be for years to come. But it dawned on me that actually what the world wants is less, not more regulations. And so we're working with my assemblyman to start providing a alternative to home builders to use a performance-based building code rather than a prescriptive code, which is basically a lot looser. And it's what a lot of the industrialized world already does. Here in America, it might be a tough sell. It's going to be a tough lift, but it would open up the possibility for people to do a lot more creative and climate-friendly housing and just simplify getting a permit here in California. And I'll leave it at that because I know the time is short. My email's in the chat if anybody wants to talk further about any of these things. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Bruce. And now we'll move on to Stephanie Dallo from the Zero Emissions Innovation Center up in Vancouver, British Columbia. Take it away, Stephanie. You're muted, Stephanie.
Oh,
There you go.
sorry.
now
Okay, how's
we
that?
can hear you
That-
now.
Okay,
Yep,
good.
that's
Okay.
fantastic.
I won't share my screen so that I, go quickly. Good to see everyone. Okay, so some quick updates. So I'm the program manager for CLF in British Columbia and through the Zero Emissions Innovation Center. And some of the things that we've been really focused on and what we've kind of gone through in the last the first part of the year, we had the Embodied Carbon Awards, and those were a really successful. That was a really successful event, and we had different. We've been. I'm just trying to see what's a priority now that I know that we have to reduce the amount of time. We had we had topics ranging from, or categories ranging from, um, commitment to circularity, organizational commitment to change, public sector leadership, a large buildings and a small buildings category, and then strengthening the practice, which is an individual that was nominated. And so we had some great winners that were representing the development side of the industry, which is great because that's been an area that we're realizing we need to get more, like bring them to the table. There's a lot of reluctance to, or like fear around embodied carbon policies being, you know, adopted or integrated into the Vancouver Building Bylaw or other policies in different municipalities. And so seeing being able to celebrate people in the industry who are doing the work and showing that it can be done without impacting their, without raising or seeing significant increase in costs, has been a win for us. And so even in our website, our CLFBC website, in our resources library, we have been doing, putting in a lot of effort to getting people in industry to publish case studies that are showing the work that they're doing and how it doesn't, break the bank and, to achieve a realistic amount of embodied carbon reduction. So, that's one of the things that we, got done. We had those awards in May, and we're continuing to publish case studies. So you could keep an eye out because the large building winner and the small building winners, we're working on getting their projects, a case study about each of their projects on our resource library in the fall. So it's in the process right now. We also had the Embodied Carbon Summit that we helped to plan and deliver but it was led by the Canadian Green Building Council. And with that, it was kind of it was a continuation on last year's summit. And so we had different breakout tables, and we had 80 industry folks across Canada representing government, representing designers, architects, code, federal government, municipal government. And so the different categories we had were focused on standardization and harmonization, looking at how we can make sure whole building lifecycle tools align, how we're making sure that we're implementing harmonized frameworks for Canada around a whole building LCA, looking at infrastructure and database development so that we can have, make sure we're facilitating collection and use of costing data for low carbon materials and design, policy and regulation, how we make sure that embodied carbon can get into the national code, and then looking at also education and industry awareness and making sure we're proactively driving increased awareness and understanding around embodied carbon and solutions that are available today, and making sure all of the impacted professionals have a clear understanding of their roles and responsibilities. And we also had this added lens of how do we make sure we're being politically resilient in what we're doing as we see, some different views on how critical embodied carbon is and if it needs to be something that is a focus. So that's been good, and it's been moving. Another thing maybe worth mentioning is that the Canadian Board for Harmonized Construction Codes is seeking input on addressing embodied carbon in the national model codes. So they had, they're looking for comments, and they actually extended the deadline so that it's July 21st. So maybe I'll leave it at that. I know that you got a lot of people on the agenda, so I could stop there.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And next on the agenda, we've got Melanie DeCola from the AIA, who I believe you're the director of the Climate Action Pledge programs. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, thank you. Got just a few slides I can whip through quickly. My screen, there we go. So I just wanted to give some basic updates to what we've been working on, including right now we're working on our 2 pledge reports. So we have the 2030 commitment and the materials pledge, both of which touch on embodied carbon in different ways, one through products, one through scopes of buildings. And we're thinking about doing some benchmarking, but we're not quite there yet. So more to come on that. We may be putting some of these benchmarks into our help page information. And there we go. I just want to call out a couple of new resources that we just published, including our updated sustainability action plan and a materials action plan, which we had not had in the past. So that is brand new. And wanted to call out that specifically for the Sustainability Action Plan, we've been trying to include more information for small firms, more guidance. We hear that a lot. Our large firms are doing really well. They've got research teams, they've got sustainability professionals, but our small firms are really struggling with some of our reporting requirements and understanding how to influence the markets that they're in and actually participate. So we added some specific small firm information in the latest guide. And we also included our 5 impact categories in the materials action plan. And this is for firms who may not have ever even considered materials action plans as part of their sustainability education within the firm. And just want to call out that we are aligned with the mindful materials, common materials framework in our different impact categories. And there's a ton of resources in here as well. Links out to other guides. If you know anybody who's looking for this kind of information, this is all free on the AIA website, or you can email me and I'll put my email in the chat as well. And then what we've been engaged with the last few months are really diving into our data for 2024 for both of the pledge programs. So for 2030, we wrapped up our reporting at the end of March, and wanted to call out specifically this 56% PEUI overall reduction. This is a 6-point jump from last year where we were at 50%, and that's pretty massive. We're still trying to figure out exactly why, but I think improved energy codes have a lot to do with that, as well as some international projects that have lower PEUIs and energy modeling. We're seeing a delta between projects that are not modeled versus modeled increasing in terms of performance and EUI reductions. So this is all kind of hot off the presses. So more to come on that. And just want to call out embodied carbon projects that are in our reporting keep going up. So that's great to see. This is like numbers we were crunching a few weeks ago. So this is all kind of brand new and will come out later in the reports early this fall. And then materials pledge, we are looking at the data. Just want to call out acoustical ceiling tile, carpet, and flooring are, again, the top 3 products that seem to have EPDs, seem to be often reported. And there's a flooring sustainability summit coming up next week. We'll be talking a little bit more about this, but just wanted to call that out. And that is it for me. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll put my information in the chat if you want to know more.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Melanie. That was an excellent report. Next on the agenda, we've got Tracy Nguyen from a longtime strategic partner of the Carbon Leadership Forum, RMI. Tracy, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew, and hello, everybody. I'll change the format of my update since an update per slide probably takes too much time, and I'll keep it short and sweet. We have a couple more large updates, which is the ResNet 1550 standard, which is the embodied carbon measurement standard for home builders in North America. We've gone through the first round of over 100 or so comments, and they are in review by the Standard Development Committee, and we expect a second draft for public comment expected this summer. So the exciting thing about that is it's pretty record timing for a standard to be put together and sent out for a second round. And hopefully the second round will have fewer and fewer comments, and we're getting closer to the finish line of getting that to be a published ResNet standard for home builders. So that'll be great way for home builders in the U.S. to measure the embodied carbon of their homes. The next, which is arguably not just an RMI update, but maybe a CLF update, is we've been working on some analysis for the 1.5 degree targets. And my team told me that the analysis is mostly complete, and the goal is to publish a report on that in August. So by the next roundtable, I'm sure we'll hear more about that. And then something that I haven't touched on too much yet, but we have expanded our embodied carbon work to global work, and have been collaborating a lot more with our India team. And we have received a first data set from one of the cities for performing an embodied carbon benchmarking study of affordable homes, which is really exciting. So our team is working on analysis on that, and with an intended publication date around November this year. We're also working with a couple of other works, like an EPD 101 article. I know this group is probably beyond hearing about that, but in India, it's super important to get their data ecosystem up to speed. So those are some updates on a high level. And so I just have one more slide of updates with potential actions. One of which is we are hosting a second workshop to develop some model policy and guideline language to integrate embodied carbon into CPACE. And if you're not aware of it, the acronym stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. They have it's a financing program that supports energy efficiency projects, and we're trying to get embodied carbon on the table there. So I'll post these links in the chat, but our second workshop to develop policy language and help get embodied carbon integrated into that program is taking place later this month. So that's something you can register for. Finally, our Home Builders Carbon Action Network. We are organizing, we have proposed a national benchmark study of embodied carbon for homes across the US. There's been a lot of great work by Chris Magwood, who I'm sure you're all very familiar with. He's done a lot of that work in Canada, and we're trying to do the same across the border here in the US. So we have a couple phases, one of which is funding and training energy raters primarily to be able to conduct embodied carbon assessments. And then we'll conduct the assessments, and RMI, or on our side, we would perform the analysis and provide a report of insights for home builders and where they stand and how they can reduce the embodied carbon of their homes. We are seeking funding for that, and we have a couple leads, but if wanted to put that out here, if anyone has any ideas, please get in touch, or if anyone wants to be involved or learn more, please get in touch either with me or Chris Magwood, whose email I have on the screen. And again, I'll share the links in the chat, but that's all I got for today.
Thanks so much, Tracy. And I want to remind everybody, please put links to resources or programs or reports in the chat window, and we'll make those all part of the notes for the meeting. And it's also clear to me that there are so many connections that would be helpful for your programs and for other programs. So one of the missions of this gathering is to connect people who are doing similar work and can lean on and rely on and support each other. So anybody who's got an idea about who they might want to be connected with, just let me know, and I'll do an email introduction or connect you in a different way. Joshua, Clement, and so if RMI is a very long time partner for the CLF, this is a new partner, the Global Energy Monitor. Joshua, tell us something about the Global Cement and Concrete Tracker that you're going to be launching in a few days.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, I'm very excited to announce the launch of the Global Cement and Concrete Tracker next Tuesday, July 15th. We've been working on it for over a year at this point, so very exciting. Sorry, there we go. So the Global Cement and Concrete Tracker is a database of over 3,500 production assets across the world. It includes over 5.5 billion tons of annual cement capacity and 3.1 billion annual tons of clinker capacity. It'll also include an interactive map, wiki pages, summary tables, a lot of things to assist with analytical breakdown. And the big one that is very exciting is that it's completely free. It's open source, so anyone can download it from our website and check our sources for all of the data that we're reporting. It includes plant location, address, direct ownership, parent companies, and the entire ownership tree structure. It includes operating status, start year. It's integrated with the SFI Global Database of Cement Production Assets, which came out in 2021, and the LEED Green Cement Technology Tracker. We report on cement capacity, clinker capacity, plant type, clinker production method, whether it's wet, dry, or semi-dry, and then the primary cement type and cement color produced at each facility. And then we also report on any relevant green cement or emissions reduction technology installed at the plant level, including carbon capture, alternative fuel, and clay calcination. So I will briefly do a overview here of the tracker. So when you download it from our website, you'll get access to this entire database here, which includes all 3,500 plus production assets. So for example, here, I'll just show off this Seattle cement plant. Say you live in Seattle and you're interested in the local cement production facility. You can get the coordinates here, the IDs for the SFI database and the LEAD database as well. If you want to cross-check there, you can look at cement capacity and clinker capacity, the type of cement, majority type of cement produced, and the color of the cement produced at the facility, operating status, year that it started, ownership. This owner entity ID column links to our GEM Global Energy Ownership Tracker, which is where we report on the entire ownership trees, as well as the parent companies, plant type, production type, and then if they have any installed emissions reduction technology. Say you wanted to go a little bit deeper here, you can come to our interactive map, which shows all of the cement production facilities on the world here, as well as operating status, plant type, all that good stuff. So say let's look for that Seattle cement plant here. Zoom in here. Seattle actually has two. One of them's a slag plant, which we also report on global blast furnace slag facilities. And so here, it reports all of that same information, as well as a snapshot of this plant itself, including, cement capacity, clinker capacity, everything I went over previously. So you want to go even deeper than that, click this more info here, and that links to our wiki pages for every facility. And this gives, again, a breakdown of all the information, as well as the sources cited for everything. So say you want to figure out, well, how do you know it's an integrated plant? It comes down here and tells you where we got that information from. There's also some background information linked on some of the pages as well for some of the more interesting plants. But this generally gives you a breakdown of everything. We'll also have some of the other benefits that all of our trackers have here. So things like summary tables. This is the iron and steel tracker, since we don't actually have a page at the moment. We haven't released. But when you come to the cement and concrete project and our projects here, you'll be able to access all of this information completely for free. Went over the website materials. Yeah, so like I said, we release next Tuesday on July 15th. If you are interested in getting access immediately when we launch, I encourage you to sign up for our mailing list. I'll drop that in the chat here, a link to that to sign up as well. You can follow any of our socials as well for more information from all of our trackers. We have a lot of different ones that report on a lot of different projects, whether it's clean energy or other heavy industry projects. And if you have any questions for me specifically, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to chat. That's all I got.
Gordon, if that's all you got, my gosh, that was kind of amazing and mind-blowing. I can't imagine that anybody's done anything like what you've done. It's an extraordinary resource, and thank you for telling us about it. The next person on our agenda is Gordon Sharp from the International Institute for Sustainable Laboratories. Short is I2SL, and I2SL is a relatively recent partner of the CLF. We've gotten to know them over the last year. It's really great to have you, Gordon. Tell us what you all are up to.
Sure. So let me just.
And I do want to remind everybody that we've just got 18 minutes left in the meeting, so be disciplined in presentations.
All right, so let's try to go quickly. Again, I2SL is all focused on laboratories. Laboratories are unique in that they're very heavy, intense in terms of energy use, but also embodied carbon. And this is sort of our Labs to Zero program, which we started a few years ago. It's all about trying to fill the gap in terms of benchmarking and scoring of laboratories in terms of their energy, operational emissions, and embodied carbon. We've got a variety of different pieces of this that we're working on, but what I'm going to focus on today really is our embodied carbon aspects and programs. The goals of them have been to create an embodied carbon benchmarking site that you can actually go in and put your building in and compare it to other peer buildings. That's completed, so you can go in and do that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. At the same time, we're now working on creating a score so that you can actually see how you rate on a percentile basis versus other buildings, other laboratory buildings, and also working on an embodied, basically a best practice guide for embodied carbon. So give a little bit more on those. So the LBT, our lab benchmarking tool, is the largest lab energy database in the world, over 1,300 lab buildings. Was jointly developed with the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. Again, it's free to use, just lbt.i2sl.org. That has been mostly focused on energy, but now we've added embodied carbon, so you can now add embodied carbon data for a newer or in construction building, both the LCA and the structural information. And then with that, you can actually compare and benchmark your building against other buildings, and you can slice and dice with a variety of different filters, like vibration criteria, which is one of the aspects that are unique to laboratories. They have strict vibration criteria for many applications, plus, again, heavy material, heavy loads and stuff like that. So, again, you can slice and dice on that and see how you compare versus others. We have quick start guides, so it's pretty easy to put the data in. Basically, if you've done an LCA for other purposes, have that data, you can put it in. We don't require a lot of data as a requirement, but we do have a variety of fields, so the more you can enter, the better. But again, appreciate any information you can enter into our large benchmarking tool. Will be great as we start to build a larger database. Just as an interesting example, this is data from our lab benchmarking tool. Currently, we have about 59 laboratories that have been entered so far. We compared that data to the study that CLF did recently, and they broke out a lab category. So that category had about 18 labs. We've got now, as I said, about 59. Data is pretty comparable. You can see that it's within about 10% for all. Basically, we were a little bit lower than CLF's data, but a little bit higher on the very top end of the scale. But again, pretty good correlation. So I think that's good, and we're all seeing about the same thing. And then, as I said, one of the next steps is we want more data, because the more data we have, we can begin to use that information to create a score. So that's one of the areas we're working on. The more data we have, again, we can begin to look at the analysis, begin to look at the correlation of the different information. With that, we can create a score. So basically using a multilinear regression analysis, very similar to the Energy Star scores. This is the same concept of a percentile score. So we want to do that for not just energy, but also embodied carbon. So we're currently working on that. The last piece here is best practice guide. So there's not really a good guide on how to decarbonize the embodied carbon for laboratories. Again, they have very unique requirements. So we're starting an effort now to create a guide to help people understand how to decarbonize in terms of the embodied carbon of laboratories. We've got a bunch of these best practice guides, but we want to now create one that focuses on embodied carbon in laboratory buildings. Again, the whole goal here would be to define, what that is, why it's important, survey how lab buildings differ from other buildings, so people can focus on those differences and how those unique needs drive embodied carbon, and then what can be done to reduce embodied carbon in laboratory buildings and still maintain the same functional requirements, and then of course share some lessons learned. So we're currently working on that now, hoping to develop something for next year. And lastly, just a quick shout out. We've got our conference, annual conference in Dallas, October 19th to 22nd, over 100 presentations. Early bird registration rates apply now, so feel free to register if you're interested. We do include, again, we'll have a variety of presentations, not just on sustainability, but also, of course, embodied carbon. So a bunch of different things there. So hope to see a few of you at our conference. So with that, I'll finish and be done. So that's it for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Gordon. And next on our agenda, we've got, all right, you're going to have to correct my pronunciation. I'm fairly confident. Enrique Goes from the C40. Tell us what's happening with the C40 these days.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's really great to be here. Yeah, my name, it's a bit tricky to pronounce the Portuguese version. Enrique in English is totally fine. Just so you know, the Portuguese one is Henrique, which is slightly different.
Okay,
But a bit tricky.
great.
Yeah, but no
Excellent.
worries at all. Let me share my screen real quick. Um, Yes. Here we go. So I'm Henrique. I'm with C40 Cities. I'm based in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm Brazilian, but I have been working globally as clean construction network manager alongside Cecile Farro, which maybe you know. I think she was the one that came to these meetings beforehand, but has been a while since C40 is not around. So I'd just like to quickly remind everyone what is C40. C40 is this global network of nearly 100 cities, and with mayors leading and collaborating to deliver the urgent action that we need to fight climate change. So we're all over the world with mostly big cities that represent a big part of global GDP. C40 supports cities at a political and a technical level. So we work with those cities in different ways. We set leadership standards. We bring them research, global and regional expertise. We provide them with a platform for sharing best practices and learning from each other. We help them to deliver directly some high impact actions. And we really support this agenda of a political support that ensures that climate action is inclusive and fair for all. And we do this focusing on all of the areas in cities that have a strong impact on climate change. So cities, as you know, contribute a lot to the global economy. And in terms of population, we have more and more people living in cities, and therefore different aspects of the city's economies affect emissions globally. But also cities are the stage in where many people suffer from the effects of climate change. So we're also looking at things like adaptation and resilience with those cities. I'm part of the team that works with the construction sector. Just very quickly, I think it's important to bring what this means for us. So for us, a clean construction sector means a resilient, resource efficient, decarbonized, and just construction ecosystem. So it includes quite a lot. We're not only looking, for example, in the change of a material, which is a very important part of it, but we're looking at how the whole sector deals with the way we produce the built environment in a different way. So we're talking about, for example, optimizing the buildings and the assets that we already have, reducing building vacancies, doing adaptive reuse, but also then changing the way we build things, changing materials, practices, and so on. And also, how do we plan our buildings in our cities for the future, considering the climate challenges that we're going to face. These are the cities that are part of the Clean Construction Program. From all of those 100 cities at C40, about 50 of them are working with us more closely in clean construction. As you see, there's a lot of activity in North America. I know that there are a lot of North American folks here. Sadly, not as much activity in Africa. It would be great to connect to colleagues that are based there to see how we can think about expanding the action there. But just very quickly, wanted to share some of the last things that we've been working on. This
Enrique,
report.
Enrique, let me just urge you to wrap it up
Yeah,
when you can. We've got
yeah.
a limited amount of time
Last,
and several people to go.
for sure. Last two points. These two publications that we've been working since in the last year. One about connecting decarbonization of the built environment with climate resilience, and another about the green jobs potential of clean construction in cities. And finally, here are some of the activities that we have done. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just so you know, we've done some workshops in Latin America, Europe, around different topics about clean construction. Very happy to connect later on. That's it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well done. And now Lindsay Watkins from USGBC. Take it away.
Thanks, everybody. I'm not going to do slides, but I'll drop links in the chat once I'm done talking. But most excitingly, Lead version 5 was released a couple months ago. So we're super excited to have that out. Hopefully most of you know, but we do have required embodied carbon assessment now as a prerequisite in the rating system. And we'll be building out resources to help folks do that. Brooke and Other CLF folks were talking about the material baselines, and we reference those quite heavily as a data point. So we really appreciate that resource and look forward to kind of continuing to incorporate that over time. So additionally, for our reduced embodied carbon credit, which we reward whole building LCA at the highest level, we are aligning with ECHO on the reporting framework. So we're trying to, the ECHO schema that was published last year, we're trying to align that to build as much harmony in the industry as we can. Heard a lot of great conversations today about innovative concrete, and we are pushing for a innovation credit for innovative concrete mixes. So keep an eye out for that. We also hope to see everybody at Greenbuild. It'd be great to connect with you all there. Megan Lewis from CLF and some other folks and I will be talking about intersectionality with embodied carbon. And I think that's it for me. Mostly just go check out Lead V5. I'll drop some things in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And I do feel like it's an opportunity for celebration. Lead 5, including embodied carbon credits. Wow, that's an historic event. So thank you very much for letting us kind of keying in on that one. Richard Graves from the Center for Sustainable Building Research at the University of Minnesota. Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And I just posted in the chat. So we facilitate Buy Clean for the state of Minnesota. So no slides, but I'll keep this quick. We're kind of in the process of working through our task force, which is made up of industry folks, designers, and from more than just Minnesota. Max Pushtola is on the task force as well. You'll probably hear from him. So we sent out kind of our initial draft of limit setting process and some other things to the task force. It's great to see all the work on kind of limits and data collection and other things, but we've really put a big emphasis on the process by which we will go through kind of creating a code-like process in Minnesota for updating limits over time. And probably one of the most challenging environments where, in all the data sets we've seen today, usually the upper Midwest is a big fat hole with no data. And so we're trying to work on, how do we close that, get more data and usability for projects in Minnesota. So working through comments that are dealing mostly with, what do we do now with some of the federal changes? Lots of comments about kind of steel limits and way into the weeds there, biogenic carbon, and things like that. We're also working through the database that we're going to use using EC3 on the building side, but we're the only state in Buy Clean that is doing an integrated both buildings and transportation in all one kind of Buy Clean program. Some other states, Colorado is doing both buildings and transport, but it's kind of two parallel processes. So that's going forward. We've sent out grants to manufacturers, particularly focused on the concrete and asphalt sectors where we don't have enough EPDs in our market. And then the other thing we're beginning to start to look at is our Buy Clean legislation, really just focused on big building projects and paving projects on the roadside. So we're exploring how we can expand that to cover all state funded projects, because the center, we manage the program B3 that guides all state funded projects. So we think we can just sort of tuck in some of the Buy Clean requirements into those requirements and hit more larger set of building projects that also have included whole building LCAs for a long time. So that will help with kind of expanding the whole building LCA data set. And then on our DOT side, they're looking at expanding to more than just paving projects and hitting bridge projects and other projects. So probably more that we can share specifically in probably 2 or 3 months once we get through kind of our comment phase and we can share the draft that goes to our commissioners. So thanks, Andrew.
Great, thanks a lot, Richard. We've got 3 final speakers, and then we'll be slightly over our time, but I think that'll be fine. Tom Tietz from the California Nevada Cement Association. Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you, Andrew, and thank you for putting this together. I thought, given that this is an NGO forum, and you mentioned a key word called convergence at the beginning of the call, I'll just highlight a few things that have happened this year. We've had 2 meetings with NGOs in San Francisco, along with the cement producers here in California. I see Ash on the screen here, who's attended one of those. And what we've been striving to do is find areas of convergence that are where our voices can be combined for a more powerful impact. And we're currently looking at 4 areas there, which include reauthorizing the cap and trade program here in California, revising the definition of cement in California in the cap and trade program so we get credit for using materials like calcined clay, fly ash, or slag in cement production. And we're also trying to make sure there's credit allowed for capturing carbon at cement plants. Surprisingly, that's not part of the system. And then the last piece that we're looking at, working on together, is holding imported cements to an equal or equivalent cement intensity standard for carbon emissions. That doesn't include emissions like air and water that Ash had mentioned earlier. But those are some of the things that we're working on, and thought I'd share that this morning.
Great, thank you so much, Tom. And then we've got Aditi Agarwal from the California Air Resources Board. Go right ahead.
Hi, thank you. And I'll just briefly update. We are working on AB 2446 and AB 43. I don't know if folks are familiar with it, but the idea is that the state of California requires to reduce emissions by 40% from the building sector by 2035. The 2 key aspects here, again, kind of similar to what was mentioned before. We're working on a lot of building side of things and also the manufacturer side of things. So that puts us in a slightly more unique position where we are requesting data from both the manufacturers and the buildings. And the initial concepts were presented in a workshop in March this year, where essentially the manufacturers either report their facility-specific data, such as energy and material flows, or they provide facility-specific EPDs. And the buildings will have 2 alternatives to report, either just give us the basic information and CARB can estimate the emissions, or you can do a whole building LCA, similar to what CalGreen is doing. Again, these are very initial concepts. We will be having a more deeper dive conversation in fall this year. I'll share the link with this group, but we'd really love to have your feedback on the specifics in terms of data quality, amount of effort required, and kind of emissions reductions in the future. Thank you.
Great job of discipline and focus and rich information in a short period of time. Thank you very much. And then our final speaker, Max Buchtel from the American Institute of Steel Construction. Go right ahead, Max.
Hey, thank you. I'll go extremely fast, and nice to see a lot of familiar faces on the call. So I said 3 things I want to mention about structural steel in the US. All right, so that's about our organization. So all right, so the first is that on the embodied carbon front, the embodied carbon of structural steel is lower than you think. We've recently completed LCA for industry-wide average fabricated hot rolled sections, plate, and HSS, and we're eager to be producing more updated industry-wide EPDs for those products, reflecting that reduction. Those EPDs are forthcoming in the next couple of months. Additionally, we are extremely proud of the broad coverage of facility-specific EPDs amongst the entire steel industry. So don't let anybody tell you that they can't find a facility-specific EPD for steel, because it certainly exists. Secondly, the steel PCR came out this April. It is a new standard in the rules for creating those EPDs. We're really happy to have a huge committee, about 30 people, including lots of experts and government representatives on that committee, and we're really happy with the result. And finally, everyone should bookmark aisc.org/EPD, where I make it my job to ensure that all facility-specific EPDs for structural steel products in the US are summarized, accurately interpreted, and consolidated for your use and referenced, so people can use this as a source for compliance for structural steel in the United States. And then finally, we also published March this year a specification strategies for people to put specification language for embodied carbon reduction into all of their construction projects, which we're extremely happy and pleased about, and hopefully everyone can read that as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Max. And I got to tell you guys, I leave these meetings just buzzing with gratitude and excitement. This is the record of this meeting is a record of intense action, intense focus, a real focus on measurable progress on producing data and analysis and policies and strategies that will lead to a much lower carbon footprint built industry. Thank you very much for being part of this morning. Anybody, I think Cecilia, you said that you were able to do a recording of the meeting. Please provide that to me. Anybody else who's done a recording of the meeting, let me know that, and we'll provide notes and the recording in the next few days. So thanks to everybody for attending this morning, and I'll see you in 3 months. Bye-bye.